I'm starting out with a color wheel. I know I don't expect you to be able to read it all or see it all, but it really would. Now I'm going to start with some questions from the group. And one of the questions was about water. How often do you change your water? Well, actually, I don't change it fanatically. I don't keep it as clean as I do my palette. However, I do change it, because it can affect the other colors. You just don't want to be jumping up every 3 minutes having to do that. But for a demonstration here, say for instance you started out with pink and you're painting pink, and then you had been doing something in green, and of course then you're putting the green water, kind of, you want to go back to the pink, but you've actually got green in your water going on to the pink. Well, here's what you're going to get. Most people call this mud, but actually it's kind of a pretty black. It's a pretty green all by itself too. And here's some more of it. What the deal is here is keep your water pretty clean, but it doesn't have to be like so clear, you know, that you can see through it. And this is another point here. I believe that everyone should just make their own blacks and make their own grays with complementary colors. That saves you money on paint, and it's actually much livelier than if you buy a bottled black or a bottled paint. I'm just kind of making some little blooms here. I don't know if they're going to show up, but you know, it's really nice to have watercolor do what it does. You know, why fight it? If it likes to make blooms, it likes to do special shapes and stuff, let it do that. Enjoy it for what it does. If you expect it to act like acrylics or oil paints, you're not going to get that much fun out of it, and you're going to be fighting it the whole way. So to me it is difficult, but it's also a wonderful medium, and I truly enjoy working with it. And I think with a little bit of knowledge, almost everyone else can enjoy working with it too. I'm going to do a little thing along the side here because I want to see how this works with some salt. And that's how I did my Mandela moon, and I hope everyone will be able to see this. Maybe I'll actually put some right in the green here and see how that works. It needs to be a pretty dark color for the little salt stuff to show up, and you can use almost any kind of salt depending on how big you want them to be. I don't think it works quite as well with Windsor green, but we'll find out. Also, you can get kosher salt, you can get sea salt, I mean any kind of salt, just depending on the size you want. And I can see this is coming out a little shiny from the light here. So that kind of answers the water question, and now we're going to go on to how much. I'm just adding a little bit more here to see what happens with this one too. How much water do you want, ratio water to watercolors? That's what's great about watercolors. If you're not sure how dark you want something to be, then try lighter. It's much easier to go darker than it is to go lighter. So I would always use less water to the watercolor than you want until you know. You know, because we'll learn how to make it lighter. We'll definitely learn how to make it lighter, but it's much easier to go darker than it is to go lighter. It's kind of a pretty color. See if those guys will run into each other very much or not. Kind of let them do their thing. Some of these are Windsor colors, and they just move beautifully. Okay, a couple other questions I think that we had from the group. Water cleaning brushes. Oh yeah. Okay, I just clean my brushes in regular water. There are brush cleaner liquids, and you can do that. But to me, the most important thing is getting all the paint out of them. And while you're painting and using them, and while they're wet, I think it's very important to lie them down flat like this, because you do not want the water running down the ferrule here. That could ruin that. So the idea is lie them flat so they'll dry, or leave them flat while you're using them and while you're painting. And once they're completely dry, then you can set them upright or store them however you want. But it's really important that they stay flat until they're dry. That's what's the most important thing. And testing colors when you're not sure how much water, how much paint. I mean, a paper towel's a good thing. Try out a paper towel. You're not sure how it's going to look, just put a little paint on there. You kind of get an idea. Scrap paper, it's not the same as watercolor paper, but it will give you an idea of how much water and how much color And another little cute little thing that I have is a tube wringer and a hair dryer. Here's the hair dryer. Now, you really don't want to start this at a real high speed or when the paint's real wet, because you'll just blow it all over the place. So before you start using a hair dryer on something, practice on paper, and then be sure you keep it far enough away before you turn it on, and don't turn it on full speed yet. But this is kind of a way to speed up some of your watercolors. I would just say practice. With almost everything, practice really does make perfect with watercolor. The more you use them, the better you get, because you learn how they work, how they act to things, how they respond. And so it's, you know, so many things aren't a surprise to you anymore. This is some of the tube watercolor that I get, and I really like using tube. I recommend that you buy tube watercolors. When I showed my palette in the beginning, that's what I did, is I squeezed out the watercolor from these into the palette. The palette has a tight cover on it, so they will stay pretty soft, but you can always take a spray bottle and moisten them every time you want to paint. Don't make them soaking wet. You really don't need to do that. But these tubes, some of these tubes I've had for almost a year, and that doesn't mean I don't like the color. It just goes longer when you don't throw it away as soon as you're done painting, because it got all dry. You put it in a nice palette and keep it moist, and there you go. And also, I used distilled water in this bottle. If I'm buying good watercolor, I'm not going to ruin it by pouring water into it. So I think I've covered that. The brushes, I'm just going to go over this. Sorry. My tube wringer, I don't know what happened. Oh, here it is. I love this guy. This is a tube wringer. So when you're buying nice, expensive watercolor, get one of these for $4. There you go. Just have to put your tube in there, clamp down on it, and start wringing it through, and it'll push. I'm not going to do that because the cap will leave the cap on, but you'll get to use all your watercolor. None of it will go to waste. I'm going to do some paintings and everything too eventually, and my little test here, I don't want to make this too long a tape. Firstly, my little test. See, it's starting to happen, but not fast enough. And I'm probably going to do a time lapse on this. But see, here's the pieces of salt. I hope you can see them here. And see where they're kind of moving the watercolor away. And here, the green is doing that, but the green's actually kind of, the salt is soaking up. So all the colors react differently. It just depends. So you want to get a color chart. Do one off the internet. And I'll show some of my favorite colors in the next video and do a little bit more painting. And thank you very much, and I'm happy for everyone's in my group, and I hope that we all have a lot of fun with watercolors. Bye.